Hi, I'm Sarah,
And I'm Tiffany.
and this is the Clean Romance Podcast. We're going to break down 5-star reads, hot button topics, and what makes clean romance shine.
This week's episode is about, do deeper or darker themes belong in rom-com? And we have a super special guest with us today, Annah Conwell. Thanks so much for joining us, Anna.
Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to be here.
So we're going to start off with a little discussion question, a light discussion question before we get a little deeper. So everyone's going to answer this, but Anna, we'll let you go first. What's a book you would secretly love to write that's completely outside of your usual genre or style that would surprise your current readers?
So it may not surprise all of them because I joke about this pun that I'm pretty much an open book, but I haven't said this that often, but speaking of darker themes, I wouldn't mind writing a mafia romance. I think it would be fun. I would have to decide how I would go about the moral aspects of it. But I think that it would be a really interesting genre to write in, and I've been seeing people put, Christian and clean romance spins on it. It's really fun.
I could totally see that. You should do that. You should do that.
Yes, you should.
My team would kill me. I'm already doing 2 genres, and I'm like, what about a third? Maybe a fourth. Let's do them all.
That is not the answer I was expecting either, so that's amazing. All right, Tiffany, what about you?
Okay, so I would love to write a space opera. So my oldest was really into space for a long time. And I'm not saying like a casual interest in space. Like we literally were watching like black hole documentaries like for adults, but he was 5. It was really intense. So I have a book in my head that I'll probably never write that is about saving Earth, trying to find another Earth when the sun is supposed to eventually explode, right? According to scientists one day in like 5 billion years. So in my book, it's sped up and they have this team of, I want it to kind of be a young adult book, but like a team of kids who have been trained like from infancy that this is what they're going to do. Like this is their whole life's purpose. This is a little weird, but I kind of wanted them to be chemically castrated so that it's like, this is your only focus in life. And then as they're like, I know. And as they're floating through space, they are like, hey, we could just stop taking our medicine to like make us, eunuchs and like fall in love.
Wow.
You've really thought this through.
Yes, I think that you've got it outlined already and it's go time. I actually read a really good space opera series by an author. She was an auto-read author for me for a long time, and she would kind of hop genres, and she wrote a really good space opera. So if you want to read one, I can recommend it, but I can't remember what it's called right now, so I'll have to tell you later.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I don't feel like mine is that shocking, but I have been wanting to... Okay, this has been like my drive is, how we all love Narnia? Because Narnia, like, I believe the reason we love fantasy is because it feels spiritual to us. Like, I feel like it gives us kind of a peek into good and evil and what's really going on around us. And so I would love to write a retelling of Jesus, but not in a way that anyone would know that I'm doing a retelling of Jesus.
Yeah.
And have more, instead of it being historically accurate, you've got to have like the side character. Maybe it's more about the side characters and they're falling in love, but they're also following this guy who is like saving the world. So that's actually been brewing, but I'm like, I don't think I'm good enough. Like, I don't think I am equipped, and I can't even wrap my head around how I could do it. But that has been something I would love to read or write.
I love that. Yeah. That is very cool. I have been thinking a lot of... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anna.
I was just going to say that would be really fascinating. I would read that book, so...
Well, we'll see. But then I was also thinking, kind of seems like every fantasy book is about that. They just maybe don't realize it, right? Like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He
Totally.
gave his life for his friends and then came back.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of fantasy books kind of do that already. So I'm like, maybe it already exists, and that's just why I like the genre.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. Would you make it contemporary, or it would be?
I don't know. That's a good question. I really like things that exist kind of like before cell phones, like when we still used horses to get around. I don't know what we call that era, but that's
Right.
that's my favorite, is when we still use horses to get around. Technology's out.
Yeah.
But maybe it would be good for it to be contemporary, so people could feel like they relate to this here and now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've been thinking about that, like doing a series of novellas where it's like contemporary retellings of Bible stories. Like on Sunday, we talked about Zacchaeus. And I was like, I literally plotted out this whole book during the Sunday sermon. I was like, Zacchaeus has an assistant who is a believer, and she's kind of been like softening his heart all this time. And then Jesus comes into town and like he's primed and ready, and then he becomes a believer, and then they get together, and it's like,
I see where your mind was during the sermon.
Yeah, I know. It was a great sermon. I just, it was so inspiring. It inspired me to write a book.
Yeah. All I know is when you say Zacchaeus, all I can hear is Zacchaeus was a wee little man.
Okay, he kept saying that during the Sunday service. I actually am not familiar with that. I missed something.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, it's like a little song about him. Yeah.
Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. He climbed up in the sycamore tree to see what he could see. Anna, take it from here. I can't remember what happens next.
I can't. You got as far as I got, and I also am not a singer. So
but somewhere Jesus shows up, and Jesus says, "Zacchaeus, you come down. For I'm going to your house today. How have you missed this? I don't understand.
No idea. And everyone was singing along in the congregation, and I was like, I feel like there's a core memory like missing in my hard drive. Like, what happened?
Oh my gosh. Okay, there is definitely a core memory missing. Like, okay, we're gonna teach this to you later. Maybe you edit this episode so that you can listen to it 100 times and learn it. Okay. Well, any other icebreaker things to talk about?
No, I think that's. I was like, are we gonna put this on Instagram? But I'm trying to think how to form it into a discussion question for Instagram, and I'm coming up short.
I was like, I don't think Zacchaeus was a wee little man is copyrighted. I think we can sing that on Instagram. It's fine. It's probably past its 60 years or whatever. I don't know.
Well, whatever we decide to put on Instagram this week,
have fun with it.
Check it out at the Clean Romance Podcast and let us know. It might be, do you know the Zacchaeus is a wee little man song? Or it might be something.
What's a core memory from childhood that other people may not have?
Or how about a song, a core memory song from childhood?
Okay, so we're going to go off on a tangent for a second, but so sometimes when I am like on my horse, and when he gets nervous, I try to sing songs because singing calms your nervous system and it calms his nervous system. And so what I find so fascinating is that I sing songs every week in church. I listen to the radio occasionally. I can sing along with the songs that my daughter loves. But when I am riding my horse, there's only like 3 songs that come to mind, and they were all songs from high school that like we sang a lot in church because, in youth group, you sing it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just find that fascinating, and I'm curious if anyone else has that experience. Like if you're trying to think of a song to sing, is it always songs from 30 years ago, or can you think of the song that you sang in church on Sunday or that you listened to on the radio on the way to wherever you're going?
That is a good question.
Do you all have an answer?
Go ahead, Anna.
I'm singing a song. I do think of recent ones because I feel like our church will go through seasons of incorporating certain songs depending on what we're discussing, and then I'll have favorites, and I usually take that song and then put it on my playlist and listen to it a bunch. So then whatever that is, but then I also have like a default, usually if I'm trying to set my mind on the Lord and not on something that's bothering me, a default one is Our God is an Awesome God. That always comes to mind, and that's from a long time ago. So
yeah,
I think it's a little both for me.
When they remade that song, okay, I have a core memory of that song. I was younger. I don't know how old you are, Anna, but I have an older brother. He's 6 years older than me, and I got drugged to one of his youth retreats. So when he was at a youth retreat, I was like in elementary school, and they sang "Our God is an Awesome God" over and over and over and over, and I was not really tuned into God at that point in my life, and I grew to hate that song because they sang it so much that weekend. So when they remade that song recently, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't get away.
Oh my gosh, Sarah.
I'm sorry, God. I love you. You are an awesome God. The song. I'm sorry.
That's hilarious. Well, when my husband and I went to Costa Rica for our anniversary a few years ago, and we went on this mile-long zip line, and it was one of those like Superman ones where you're laying down and they have it like, I don't know. Anyway, I was not heavy enough to make it all the way across. And so I get close to the end and I'm slowing down and realizing I'm not going to make it across. And so they like literally like threw a rope to me to try to catch me to bring me back to the beginning. And they couldn't throw the rope far enough. So I went backwards on the zip line and I got stuck in the middle of the zip line. I'm just hanging there and it's like over the rainforest, like it's like a mile down, because you're ziplining from the top of a mountain. And I was stuck there. I mean, probably like it took 5 to 7 minutes for one of the guys to like climb back to get me, and he connected me to him and then shimmied back to the beginning. But I'm just hanging there, swinging in the wind, and I was freaking out. And the songs that I started singing to calm myself down were childhood songs. Like,
yeah.
I can't even remember what, but it was like, God is so good, like just like trying to repeat really repetitive songs. And I feel like that's what childhood songs are. It's like really repetitive, It got me through.
It got you through. You're here. You're here to tell the story.
I made it, you guys.
Now I'm scared to go on a mile zip line.
Yeah, just make sure
I'm heavier than you.
They like can put extra weight on you, apparently. Like they put like weighted bags on you if you're not heavy enough. So they should have done that.
Yeah,
but they didn't. Word to the wise.
Yes. Okay, next time.
All right, before we dive into the rest of this episode, I'm going to give you guys this week's book sponsorship. Book sponsorships help keep our show running while giving us a chance to share with you about more clean romances to add to your TBR. This episode is brought to you by The Transfer by Lauren Andrew. I'm going to read the blurb for you all, and then I'm going to tell you how to find this book. Riggs. All I've ever wanted is to play basketball. It's been my entire life until my world is upended. Starting my senior year at a new school and a new team is not what I had in mind, but nothing has been going to plan, especially when I meet her. Reagan Mills is the only girl that has ever made me look twice. My new teammate's twin sister is the distraction I don't need. Not to mention, she is completely off limits. Reagan. It's been 4 years since I got my heart broken and swore off basketball players. It's my senior year at Carolina Tech and I'm not getting caught up. At least, that's what I tell myself when I meet him. Riggs' heart is gorgeous, and I constantly remind myself not to go there with another athlete. But the more I'm around him, the more I start to change my mind, until the boy from my past comes back as the man who wants me. Thank you so much, Lauren Andrew, for sponsoring this episode. You can find her books on Amazon on Kindle Unlimited and paperback. The link for that will be in the show notes and on our website at thecleanromancepodcast.com. All right, now back to our episode.
So we're talking about writing deeper or darker themes into rom-com, and we're excited to talk about this with you, Anna, because you write rom-coms. That's primarily what you write, but you do have some deeper threads in them, and I found you, Anna, through your Sweet Peach series, which is Very, very sweet. But he's a Carter brother. That series, still rom-com, still definitely rom-com, but you definitely have some characters in there that are going through some more intense themes. So I'm curious, is it an oxymoron to say that there are darker, deeper themes in a rom-com? I feel like I just answered that for myself, but what do you think?
I don't think so. So I like to call the Carter Brothers series in particular emotional rom-coms. I think that that's a fun way to give people a little warning. I think there is some deeper themes in my Sweet Beach series, but I definitely leaned more heavily once I got to the first book in the Carter Brothers, and then slowly sort of found my voice and my style and the balance in that. And I'm, of course, still growing and changing as well. But I think that it makes sense to have very human elements in a genre where you don't have, it's not as plot driven, it's very character driven. So if your characters are not interesting, unless you have something very fun and exciting going on, they need to go through something together and have that character arc, that character growth that would propel the story along. And I found that that's what I prefer rather than an external plot focused romance that say they're in this situation and they have to get through it. I do incorporate that, but I prefer having emotional blocks to relationships that the characters work through. And sometimes that involves deeper themes such as grief or, identity issues and parental issues, things of that nature.
I feel like you just took us to school for writing. Thank you. That was great.
I don't know about that.
I just started reading last night the Carter brother. I think it's the Carter brothers. The Grump Next Door. Is that what it's called?
But He's My Grumpy Neighbor.
Yes. I started reading it, and I just want you to know that I'm really tired today, and it is your fault. Because it was so good, and it's been a while since I've read a book that did that to me, but I was like, just another page. Just one more chapter. And it was like after 11 before I finally hit the end of a chapter and just pushed the button and turned my Kindle off. But yeah, I love that because I normally think of books as being more interesting when they have a plot driving it. But you've done a really good job of having the emotion drive it, and it's not just like, does he like me? Like there's true emotions going on outside of, I don't know if he likes me or not.
Thank you. Yeah, that's something that I worked on. I think that, let's say my first book, The Love Audit, had this external plot of their enemies. They don't like what the other person does actually, Callum doesn't like what Lottie does for her job. And I had real life influence based off my husband's job for that. So that I leaned heavily into that dynamic, which is a very external thing. And then the situations I put them in to force proximity. But they also had, he had trust issues and she had people pleasing tendencies. So I had that at the beginning, but I think slowly over time, a lot of my writing has now tended towards the introspective, emotional aspect of the characters and what's that motivation that drives them to a relationship or away from a relationship, and then how can I challenge that as a writer.
I love that. It's interesting to think about how, as writers and even as readers too, we have our own character arcs, like we're all going through, and it's not usually as smooth as it is in a book, but we're all going through life, and what's going on in our lives at the time can really impact what we're writing and why we're writing that. And I'm curious, and I know I'm going off script here, but like, what in your life do you think has influenced what you're writing?
Yeah, I would say so many things in my life. So my very first book, I like to say if you've read that book, you've met myself and my husband, because they say write what you know. So I just wrote us essentially down to some of the looks. At the time I was blonde, so Lottie was also blonde, and Callum's based loosely off of my husband as well. So a lot of myself and the things I was healing from, which was a people-pleasing tendency, I put into that book. And it's not the same for every character, but there's a lot of aspects of myself. The Carter family all goes through grief, and in their case it was the loss of their mom, but I've lost people in my life, my grandmother to name one, and there is a legacy that people can leave behind and memories and ways of honoring throughout a family that really spoke to me. And then there's also, things that I walk through in my life. Typically when I'm on the edge of that, when I've gone through it, where I've walked through it for a while, is when I'll tackle writing it. I feel like the Lord uses that to minister to me. It's sort of like a journal. In some of my husband's latest comments on my manuscript, he was like, "Is this just your diary that I'm reading?" And that's the one that's coming out soon. So it's an interesting thing, and it's sometimes difficult to put it out there in that case, but I really enjoy walking through that healing process with the Lord through my work. I feel like it makes the work more meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah, definitely. That's beautiful. I love that. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. I can relate to that a lot too. I'm curious if Sarah, you can. I do think that a lot of writing for me has been working through things that I need to work through. My first book was absolutely like, I'm writing this to myself. Like, I had fears that I needed to overcome and things, that pain in my life that I needed to work through. And the book is just an extension of that, obviously in a completely different way, but it still was a very healing process for me. For sure.
I mean, I definitely would relate because my first book was a memoir.
That's true. Yeah.
So I laid it all bare. But yes, so I definitely, that was, I would say God, I felt like God takes us through experiences so that we can share them with others, and hopefully, like through the memoir, hopefully people will learn things without having to learn the hard way, like I did. And then with fiction, I kind of did the same thing. It was with my novel. I feel like y'all are deeper than I am right now about the novel. I got being a mom of small kids is so hard for me. So hard. And I don't think that it was like technical postpartum depression so much as like God made me a freedom and flexibility person. Like, that's my personality. So I need to be able to get up and go and do. And when I had small kids, I could not get up and go and do at all. And I don't have family nearby to watch the kids. And so it was a very painful season for me, a very humbling season of learning, like to have little bitty humans demanding what my days looked like was just hard. And I lost myself. And so all the things is, in that sense, very much my story of like trying to find myself as a mom and trying to love being a mom. Just a disclaimer to everyone out there, I absolutely love being a mom now. It's just those first few years were rough. So I don't like the American hate on parenting mentality that we tend to have. Like, we'll cry telling you what a gift being a parent is now, but it was really hard at first. That's
Yeah. Those early years, I think about that verse where it says, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground, it remains only a single seed. And I think about that with becoming a mom. It's like literally you are falling to the ground and dying to yourself so that you can replicate yourself, in these children. And it's a dying to yourself process.
it is.
So let's discuss, why do you think these grittier or more raw stories resonate so much with readers? Like, why are readers hungry for this type of content?
I think there is a lack of authenticity in our culture, and we're sort of seeing a shift toward, as far as on social media and in media in general, this desire for people to be more authentic and more real. So there's still, of course, the allure of the shiny perfection influencer girl. But I would say a lot of the very popular people of this time, of this upcoming generation, that I've noticed is these gritty, real, they're not trying to be fancy about it people, and they're just speaking and telling their stories. And I think that that's translating into writing. I think that I've seen a lot of discourse online of people who don't want to read, like they enjoy the genre of rom-com, but they don't want to just read a story where everyone's perfect and this archetype of a character that feels like, as plastic is the coating on the cover. So they want something real, and I desire that as well when I read. I don't necessarily need it to always be a very dark, intense fantasy, but I want, when I read, to have an aspect of relatability to the character or experience something that I haven't that shows me something new, a new perspective about the world through that character's journey. So I think that that's what people are looking for, and that's another reason why I write what I write. It just comes out of me because this is what I'm working through oftentimes, or similar to what Sarah said, what other people around me are working through that then influences my writing, most of the time indirectly. So when my friends listen to this, I'm not directly writing about you unless I tell you so, because they get so worried. They're like, she's gonna write this into a book, not on purpose. I have done it, not on purpose. So I think that people are just looking for something real, and they don't want to read necessarily, not everyone. There's definitely times when you want to read something that is very Hallmark, but I think a lot of people are looking for a step or two deeper.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that I love about stories like yours, Anna, is I am a sensitive soul. We've talked about this on the podcast. Like, it's hard for me to read books that are really dark or just too intense, but I, I love kind of like the middle ground of like, I'm reading a rom-com, like I know there's gonna be lighthearted, hopeful moments, but still, and I'm a very emotional person. Like I think what you described as emotional rom-coms, like that is perfect. I think for me, I'm your ideal reader, I think.
Says Tiffany, who has read the whole backlist. Like, you're
Yes.
definitely the ideal reader.
Yeah, I am. But I do think you want something. I think rom-com readers a lot of times do want an escape from real life. You know, I do think sometimes we need a break from whatever things are going on in our day to day. But then I do think those of us who are craving something a little bit deeper, you know, we want that authenticity. We don't want the plastic characters. And I think you described that really well.
Yeah, I feel similar to you, and it is totally like an oxymoron, like you said in your question, of the sense that I want something that goes deep. I want to feel like I am changed because I read a book. I don't want to put it down and think that was a waste of time. Like, that was fun, but it was a waste of time. But at the same time, I am super empathetic to the point that if my character that I'm reading about is having a really rough time, my whole day feels like I am also having a really rough time. There are times when I reach like the black moment of a book and I just will stop everything and binge through it to get to the other side so that I'm not carrying the emotional burden all day. And I have finally learned, like, it's not irresponsible. This is keeping myself from carrying an emotional burden that I am not meant to carry because it's a fictional character. So we're just going to get to the other side real quick. But that's why I love reading these deeper rom-coms, because it's a blend of both. They tend to just carry a funnier attitude. They tend to, tend to see life through rose-colored glasses, which helps me not be just burdened all the time because of what I'm reading.
This is making me think about our hormones and reading episode, where we talked about there are certain times in the month where things just hit harder and are more intense. And I think, we just have to know where we're at too and what we can handle.
And so what's happening is Tiffany's calling me out for my hormone cycle right now.
Know thyself, Sarah. Know thyself and what you can handle at that time of the month.
I will say I'm at a phase of life where the emotions are always high. Like, it's not even a time of month anymore. It's the whole month. So buckle up, Tiffany. You'll be there in a couple years too. You'll join me. I almost started crying yesterday because, what was it? Oh, my kid got a really good part in the play. She didn't make it into the play last year. She got a great part this year. And I was imagining the play and almost started crying.
Sarah.
I was like, oh, they're going to do so good. I'm crying talking about it. It's going to be so fun to see their joy. You guys, this is like, welcome. Just give it a couple years. You'll be here.
I feel like I do that now. So yesterday we went to the used bookstore and got a bunch of books for the kids. And we came home and immediately my oldest sits on the couch and starts reading. And his friends come over, he ignores them. Like he's
That's
just
amazing.
like, I gotta finish this book. And I took a picture of it and I got a little teary-eyed. I was like, my son who loves to read just like me.
I love it. That's so good. Okay. All right. So what about our next question?
Okay, yeah. So, what do you think? Are there certain topics that you feel are off limits within clean or closed door romances? Like, we want to make it deeper, we want to make it, more authentic and raw. But how do you decide where to draw the line, if you draw a line?
I would say, I don't think I would say there's anything off limits. I would say that there is a aspect of handling with care that's important, especially in clean closed door. No matter the genre beneath that, for instance, I write in romantasy as well, and I write much darker and more intense than I do in rom-com. So I take, while I write, I would say a similar level of depth, I take care in what aspects how I illustrate the aspects rather. So that's something I do genre to genre, but in general, I think it's important to take into account the expectation of a reader. So when you're going into a different genre that's not clean or closed door, which I don't personally read, but I have in the past, and I understand some of the market there, you can kind of, I don't want to say get away with more because that's not the term I'm looking for, but they can tend towards an extreme sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And so I think that in clean and closed door, we're often looking for a safe place for people to read and enjoy books, but also, like we said, experience those deeper empathetic emotions. So I think it's important to take care of your readers, but not shy away from something, because sometimes if you pull back too much, then you're doing a disservice to that arc or that journey. So if I would have pulled back, for instance, in my romantasy, my main character, Rin, goes through assault when she's younger. And so if I pulled back from that too much, then it would feel inauthentic. And then there would have been no point in putting that within her character because I am not doing justice to that. So dealing with that and dealing with depression or anxiety or anything, I want to always stay true to the experience as best as I can, whether it's mine or a person I've interviewed for that. So that's my opinion on it. But there are certain things. I went into romantasy for a lot of reasons because I wanted to do was one. But another was that an aspect of my story that I wanted to tell, that was on my heart from the Lord to tell, didn't fit within my mind for my style of writing rom-com. However, I have read rom-coms that did do that, and I enjoyed them. It just wasn't right for me or my voice for this aspect of my story to be in a romantic comedy. So I think it's important knowing your own boundaries as an author as well. But
Can
I wouldn't
ask what aspect we're talking about, or is it a secret?
I mean, I've talked about it with people before, but I experience a part of my life and my testimony with the Lord is having experienced. I don't want to word this in a way that would be difficult for anybody else. I have experienced being exploited and taken advantage of as a child. So I wrote that into Rin's story in a different way than my own. And her journey towards not viewing herself as tainted for those things. So there's a lot of light versus darkness. What is the concept of purity? What makes us pure? Things like that was inserted into that storyline. And that was an aspect of my story that I knew that the Lord would have me tell at some point. But it just didn't fit into my rom-com world at this time. It might in the future, but not at this time. But there's other aspects of my life. I walked through depression, I've walked through anxiety, people pleasing, like I mentioned, grief. All of those fit into my rom-coms. Is one that I touch on in my last one, in fear of failure. So all of those things I'm not afraid to talk about in any book, or rather write about, but I want to make sure that I take care to do the justice to the story, but also give my readers that safe space that they're looking for. And thus far, I think that I have, as far as what my readers have said. So I'm grateful for that.
Oh, thanks for sharing, Anna.
Yeah.
I feel like having read Ocean of Ink, like the way that you handle it. You handle it with a lot of care, but with a lot of authenticity. And I do think that when people read books like that, I do think that it can help with the healing process, and I'm sure the writing of it also helps too. We process in different ways, and I hope that people are impacted in a positive way through what you've written.
The idea that I think Tiffany had touched on of how reading stories can be very healing, and so reading an aspect of your life through the lens of a character can be a very healing thing. And one of the reasons why I wrote what I did for Ocean of Ink was because I had experienced that through a book I read, Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. So that book was very major in my healing process with the Lord, and it's one of my favorite books still to this day. And I know that that impacted me. So my hope is that any of my stories will impact someone. And I've been blessed enough to receive messages that show that it has. So that gives proof that I'm doing something purposeful with my life, which I appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Anna.
Yes. Can we just take a moment to share with our listeners that we just had technical difficulty? So if our sound or video suddenly looks different, it's because it is. So thank you, Anna, for bearing with us and our difficulties.
Yeah, I always say I'd like to go back to letter writing, but then I guess we wouldn't get to do this. So
Right. I know we curse technology, but without technology, we wouldn't be able to read books on a Kindle and have this really great podcast. And none of us would know each other because we'd be in our own separate parts of the world with no communication.
That's true. There are pros and cons, that is for sure. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to tell us, Anna, just about writing deeper themes into rom-coms? Anything that we didn't hit on?
I don't know. I don't think so. I would just say that if someone is a writer, that they could be encouraged that they can include deeper aspects in their stories, and that there's so many beautiful, amazing books out there. I know we're gonna get to our 5-star reads and everything, so we'll share some of those, but there's so many amazing books, and I wouldn't hesitate to put an aspect that you feel is on your heart, so long as you just take the time to take care of your reader in the process.
Yeah, I love that. And how would you say writers can and should take care of their readers? Like what could a writer do to do that?
I think it would be good. I always encourage having critique partners, or if you're more in the beta reader side, that's not personally my thing, but I know a lot of authors do that as well. So having someone to read, there's also, if the topic is very intense, I know there's such a thing as sensitivity readers. So someone who's gone through that, who can read it and speak to the process if it's not something you yourself has gone through. But I would say, uh, just really thinking through the words around the subject, just taking the time to think of how someone else might approach it and not sugarcoat it, but just understand that there is it's not like a conversation like we're having where I can go back and explain everything. So you want to make sure that the point that you're making and the efforts that you're putting in come off properly.
Yeah. I actually don't know this. In your books, do you have like an author's note or trigger warnings or anything like that that would like give readers a heads up?
So I would say a lot of my books do have content warnings at the beginning. In particular for Ocean of Ink, we actually have a website page that people can go to because those content warnings are spoilers. So if you're the type of person who is searching for a certain thing, then we direct you there. But if you want to go into it and you're okay with the option of stumbling upon something, then we kind of give that option. But for my romantic comedies, especially again, because we're talking about it being in rom-coms, not everyone goes into a rom-com wanting to cry. So if I'm dealing with certain things like grief, or there's people who go through things like go in an accident, get in an accident, have depression or anxiety, I try to disclose those things at the beginning if they feel like they're an overarching theme in the book that might affect someone's reading.
Yeah.
I
That's
love that.
awesome.
Okay, so this is a question it's been brewing in my head for a while, but given recent events in the YA market, what when we're talking about grittier events in rom-com, how do we decide what is appropriate for kids and what isn't? And how do we communicate that to readers? Because I will say personally, like my book, All the Things That Come Between Us, it's a clean book, but it was not written for a kid. And I know a couple who have read it. I don't know that they should have. How do we decide this and how do we communicate this in a world where, covers are cute and cartoony?
Yeah, I think it's important to be very upfront in your branding and your marketing. I've had a few events in bookstores recently, and some of my family members have come who aren't in the book world. They're not people who read very often, and they were picking up books that have cute cartoony covers like mine. And even though some of mine are not, like you said, some of ours, even though they have those covers, are not appropriate for children necessarily. They deal with adult matters. But these ones definitely were on the spicy side. And so they were shocked when they open it up and the cartoon cover is not what they expected. So I think that it's good to be honest in your marketing as far as heat level goes. I mean, we have so many resources now to speak to heat level. We have, the writing gals and so many different peppers and all this stuff. So it's easy to be clear, I think, on our side and having those content warnings. And then, of course, I'm not a parent, but I always recommend to parents who talk to me to, if they are unsure, to read the book first. When I had a lot of conversations with parents at these events because they do come over and see, especially my college romance, and ask me things. So I try to be upfront, like, hey, I consider this upper YA for college, and the rest of mine I would not consider YA, but they are non-explicit, they don't have cursing, and here's the heat level, here's what happens, so that they can make those decisions in an educated manner. But yes, definitely, it all comes down to values as well. I think that's the complicated thing, is we all prayed before this and we've talked about Zacchaeus, so we're all Christians, so we operate in that lens, in that lane, so we understand that we wouldn't have characters do certain things that go against our values unless it was explicitly said that those things were bad. So I think that is where it gets a little tricky, because not everyone within the genre may hold our same values, but we as Christian authors, I think, should take care to show that something is sin if it is, even if you're not writing, like, I don't write Christian romance, but I wouldn't make out certain things that happen. For instance, my characters don't have sex before marriage unless I make it out as a thing of redemption or a mistake on their part. So that's something that I do personally.
Which I appreciate
Yeah.
a lot. Okay, one more thing so I just got a little hot about the recent stuff going on. And I think, honestly, a big part of it for me is that, how can we guide bookstores and libraries to help us as readers? Because I think, frankly, the louder people have been talking about spice, and that's who they respond to, is the people who are loud and they're demanding what they demand. But I think it's time for us to be loud and demand, like, we should be able to find a clean romance and it not be difficult. So how can we speak to libraries and bookstores kindly, but in a way that we get heard? Do you have any ideas for this? I just put you on the spot. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think that we've seen it with this recent event, with that book that you're speaking of. And if anyone listening doesn't know, I won't speak to the name of the book, but there was an author who it was fairly popular. I think a few years ago. I hadn't heard from her in a while, but maybe I just am not in the trad pub scene as much. But she came out with a book that has some very graphic, uh, disturbing scenes for YA, and there's been a lot of backlash, as there should be, because that's inappropriate and wrong. So I think with that, it will take time. I think a lot of these things take time for us to do, but this movement that we have, along with pushing our books and talking about them more online, you can see that the clean romance market is rising and that we're doing something right. And I think that bookstores and people in general are going to take notice of it. And so aligning and making sure that we view our genre and ourselves as a team and not try to get too divisive amongst ourselves. I think when we present a unified front, that we'll be able to approach the wider market in a more productive way. So I don't have any specific things. I just try to promote what I believe in and promote my books in a way that is very clear to what I do, and not try to trick anyone who doesn't want this into reading it, or not prepare someone who is a parent or who is younger on what's inside my books.
Yeah. I have something that has been brewing in my mind. Well, Tiffany and I've been pushing for a Barnes and Noble book table, the clean romance book table, ever since we started our podcast. That's like one of my dreams. Okay. But I was thinking, it's so easy for us to get really mad at bookstores and libraries. But what I find is that when we don't see the books we want, we get mad and walk away instead of just, I'm like, maybe there's a book that I've tried to buy it twice from Barnes and Noble. They didn't have it in stock. It was a new release. I thought for sure it was the new Melissa Ferguson book, and I was so pumped to buy it, and they didn't have it. And I finally went and ordered it at Barnes and Noble because I thought, how are they going to know I want it if I'm buying it from Amazon instead of them? And I think the more we can demand from them, hey, this is what we want, instead of, oh, you don't have it, I'm going to go somewhere else. The more we can, I have been getting really frustrated trying to find books on the Libby app, and they just don't have the clean and Christian romance authors on the Libby app for my county. And then I realized, I'm getting all upset about it, but I need a request from my library for these authors instead of being mad they don't have them. How's the library going to know if someone doesn't ask for it? So I think that's kind of I think, like you said, we need to be clear as authors. And I think as readers, like, it's time for us to show up and just say, hey, this is what we want, and let them know, instead of getting mad and walking away because they don't have what we want, which I think is what we tend to do.
Yeah, that's true. There's also a petition going around that I shared in our stories yesterday on the Clean Romance Podcast Instagram page, that people can sign about wanting a rating system for YA books in particular. Like, it should say, how video games have like M for mature or T for teen, or, like, if there's something like that, especially for young adult books, where parents know there's explicit content in this young adult book. I mean, I don't think there should be explicit content in young adult, period. But since that's already happening, like, what can we do?
And like, not everyone has the same values as us. Not everyone is Christian. Not everyone has the same worldview. So it's like, those people are gonna read that stuff and they're not gonna have a problem with it.
Yeah.
So I think instead of demanding that they pull it off the shelves, because they're not, it's like, let's demand the rating system, because that way people who do want stuff can safely find it. I've also realized, I'm like, we will buy more books. We will support Barnes. If we can walk in and know that the book is clean, we will buy it. But so many of our clean romance market, I'm realizing, aren't supporting Barnes & Noble anymore because they can't walk in and look and feel safe about it. And it's not that we hate Barnes & Noble, it's that we can't find unless we do full research in the bookstore, which we don't want to do. We want to look at a cute cover and say, yes, I'm buying this, drink some coffee and walk out the door with it,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, speaking of, should we share our 5-star reads so people know about some clean romances that are safe?
Yes.
Anna, you want to go first?
Sure. So I can share, I have so many, but as far as rom-coms that deal with deeper topics, I feel like Gracie Ruth Mitchell does a fantastic job. She is one of my auto buys. So specifically, I love Juniper Bean Resorts to Murder. I think that book's hilarious. She had a book come out recently that I haven't read yet, but it's in my Kindle. I can't remember the name, but it's the third in the series, and I love that series as well. So I would recommend her. And then this one, the covers look like rom-coms. They are not rom-coms. They're more romantic suspense, but they do have comedic elements as well. And it's Molly Barlow's Huntley Square series. I believe it starts with Even If It Hurts. I love that book. I love the series. It's really great. So I think she deserves a lot more hype. So I wanted to put that in there. I binged the whole series recently, so I really liked that one.
Nice. We just hung out with Molly in Texas, at the
that's so
writing
fun.
conference that we went to. She was awesome. And the Gracie Ruth Mitchell one that just came out is To All the Guys I Loathed Before.
I knew it was something like that, but I just couldn't. I didn't want to say it wrong. But I love those.
Me too. That's next. Literally, I'm finishing the book that I'm finishing right now, and I'm going on to that one.
I
very
think me
excited.
too. Yeah. I'm reading a romantasy right now. I think it's considered that. So I'm excited to get to that one next.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go next. So my 5-star read is by Pepper Basham, and it is Hope Like Wildflowers. It is I believe it's considered Regency romance with faith elements. And I really loved it because it deals with since we've been recently talking about purity culture, it deals with a girl who has relations outside of marriage and just her journey of of grace and forgiveness and being a young mom and all kinds of stuff. And I just loved it because I thought, people get so upset about purity culture where here we go. It's a story of redemption. So I loved it.
I love that. So my 5-star read is by this woman named Annah Conwell. I don't know if you guys have heard of her, but it's called But He's My Roommate. Now, it is the 4th book in the But He's a Carter Brother series, but I want to say it's my favorite of the 4.
I love that. That's so interesting. I love hearing which one is people's favorites.
The thing is like I felt that way about each one that I read, and it was the last one that I read, so I don't know. But one thing I will say is that if you read the whole series, which I definitely recommend people read the whole series in order, you do a good job of the whole time. I'm like, what is going on with this girl that Maverick is obviously in love with? Like it's a mystery that is lightly threaded through I believe, the entire series.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're really ready. By the time we get to book 4, it's like you're really ready for what is going to happen. And I don't want to give anything away, but it does deal with some more intense things, and you just love a manly guy who has like a soft, sweet side, for like that one person. And I think you see that in this book, and I love it. It's super sweet.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I love their book a lot. So I love the whole Carter family.
Yeah. And I love that you weave them into the RomCom University series, which I believe the next one is coming out or will have come out by the time that this episode airs.
Yes, All That Glitters comes out March 19th. So
Nice. That's exciting.
Wow.
Do you have wait, you have another book though. The next book in
yeah, I'm doing a double release this month.
Oh my gosh.
There was a lot. We sat down at the beginning of the year with a huge calendar, literally a poster board that I put the whole year on there. And we were just looking at it, and it was All That Glitters was supposed to release in April. And then the second book in my romantasy duology, Tides of Secrets, released at the end of March. And then we just looked at it, and based on some other things that were going on in my life and the way I wanted to plan it, I just thought, well, if I just push myself really hard, I can finish All That Glitters and get it to my editor and it can all work out. So I really pushed a lot for that one to happen, but I'm really excited about it. I just finished going through the proofreading and copy editing approvals today, so ARCs will go out soon, and I'm really excited about it. But yes, I released that, and then Tides of Secrets comes out March 31st, and it just went to that same editor, so she got them back to back. But it's a lot, but I'm really excited for it, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
Nice.
Wow.
So people, your readers will have some good like spring break-ish reading, possibly, depending on when your spring break is. So
Yes, as someone said that I think at least All the Glitters comes out during their kids' spring break, so it timed perfectly for them. And I was like, yay, it works out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Anna, thank you so much for joining us and for being alongside of us as we dealt with technical difficulties. Can you tell our listeners where can they find you and what books would you recommend they start with?
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sorry about that the technology part happened, but it happens to the best of us. It just likes to go against us sometimes. But so you could find me on Instagram at author Annah Conwell or at author AR Conwell for my romantasy. And my websites are annaconwell.com and arconwell.com. So you could find all of my books there and all the information about them. On the rom-com side, we've got a whole tree that shows you all the connections and also some places where to start. But for that, I would recommend Usually, But He's My Grumpy Neighbor is one that I recommend to people. If you like cozy romance and you like Gilmore Girls, you'll probably like that one. Or The Golden Goal if you like sports romance, particularly hockey, and lots of banter. I would recommend that. But my college series, if you give that a try with Chestnut Checkers, you will be in time to read All That Glitters when it comes out next, which is also All That Glitters is a hockey romance as well. So I am excited for those. And
I also have 2 Discord channels, so if you go to my websites, you can find those, and all my readers and I hang out there and we talk about books and life and crafts and TV shows and everything. So
Oh, I like just got FOMO. I'm like, how am I not on the Discord? Like, I need to be on the Discord.
you're welcome to join us. We have authors there, actually. So I think 1 or 2 are in there.
All right. I will be there shortly.
Well, thank you, Anna. It was really great to meet you. And I am, like I said, loving your book. I did start with your grumpy next door neighbor or whatever it's called. And I'm like, I just want to sign off right now and go read. Like, it's really good. So thank you. I am excited to join your universe. I have a feeling all of our next 5-star reads are going to be Anna books.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for joining us on the Clean Romance podcast, where clean romance lives happily ever after. Wherever you're listening, follow or subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Until next time, happy reading.